Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the ranking member for her kind comments, and thank you for your hard work on behalf of the American people. People oftentimes ask the question, is there anything that's not broken in the nation's capital? And I'll tell you, as a great member of the Banking Committee yourself, Madam President, the answer is there are some things that are not broken to the point it cannot be fixed in the nation's capital. And one of those things is our ability to not think left or right, blue or red, black or white, rich or poor. It is to think about and focus on the journey many of us have taken to become United States senators. The fact of the matter is, as I grew up in the Deep South in South Carolina in a little place called North Charleston, Madam President, without any question, growing up in a single-parent household, mired in poverty, the issue of housing is particularly interesting to me. I remember when my parents were divorced, my brother, my mother, and I shared a bedroom, a bed for years, a little 700 square foot rented unit by my grandparents. And I will tell you that the American dream just seemed out of reach for so many in my neighborhood, certainly for those of us living on Meeting Street Road, a dirt road, during those times. Later, my mother was able to afford a small apartment, 600 square feet or so, where my brother and I had the pleasure of having our own room separated from my mother. That was what I called a blessing from the God, the King of Kings himself, without any question. But my mother and my grandparents taught me something very powerful and necessary. They taught me faith in the Lord, perseverance through hard times, and opportunity. Those three together can transform the hardest of hard circumstances. That belief has guided my work on this very important issue of housing. Young people today are feeling in a similar fashion that I did then. They're delaying marriage. They're delaying having kids. They're delaying putting down roots, Madam President, not because they lack ambition, but because housing prices are too darn high and housing supply too low. Rent, Madam President, is too high. Starter homes too hard to find. And the American dream slips further and further away for far too many. Even the gentleman from Pennsylvania is so excited he had to recognize you, Madam President. I'll simply say that the 21st century housing even gets the junior senator from Pennsylvania's vote as well. You may ask yourself, why is that the case? And I've got 4 really important reasons why that is truly the case. First, it's because we cut red tape. And when you cut red tape, you actually reduce the cost of housing. Second, it unlocks housing supply. When you put more housing supply on the market, more people have a chance to become a first-time home buyer. Today, the first-time home buyer is 40 years old. It's just too old. And our bill protects taxpayers. Some have asked the question, how does this make housing more affordable? And I want to highlight 2 provisions. One that the ranking member talked about, which is what President Trump said during his State of the Union is simple. Houses should be for people and not for corporations. We make it easier for people to have access to housing because of the provision that President Trump placed in this legislation. Now, why are there Republicans who disagree with the president on this one? I don't know, Madam President. You'll have to ask those Republicans. John Kennedy and the ranking member have a piece of legislation that we embedded in this bill that simply says something that is remarkable from Congress, remarkable from the Senate, and frankly, common sense to everybody outside of Washington, D.C. If you build more housing, you should get more incentives. If you don't build more housing, you should lose those incentives, and they should go to the places where you're building more housing. Yes, I recognize this is common sense everywhere, but here. Finally, I'll say that the House of Representatives did a fine job of embedding in this housing legislation important priorities that I believe will make housing more affordable, more accessible, and frankly, help banks, community banks, who are the primary place you go for a mortgage, more engaged in this process. And once again, this was a bipartisan, bicameral issue to do the work of the people. I'll close with this, because I know that my 5 minutes are nearly up. If we would just focus on the American people and listen when they speak, we would remember two things. Number one, they hire us. We work for them. And number two, like E.F. Hutton, you're too young to know who that is, Madam President, but when E.F. Hutton speaks, we ought to listen. Our E.F. Hutton is called the American people. And when we listen, we bring this nation closer together. And public service should not be about those of us in public service. It should be about the journey we took. For me, that's a kid born in poverty to a great mother who believed in faith, perseverance, and opportunity. If we do our part, more kids today being raised in similar situations and circumstances that I was might have hope in the American dream. Somewhere you can read faith, hope, and love. Hope is not a bad second place, though. Let's provide more hope, more results for more Americans by simply doing the right thing.